Exodus chapter 20, verse number 2. Who came for the word? Ooh, glory. Oh, yes. Oh, yes. Thank you. Oh, yeah. Thank you, Jesus. Bless you, Lord. Exodus chapter 20, verse 2. Now there was no water. Somebody say no water for the congregation. So they gathered together against Moses and Aaron. That's what people would do to you. And the people contended with Moses and spake, saying, if only we had died when our brethren died before the Lord. Why have you brought up this assembly out of the Lord unto the wilderness, that we and our animals should die here? Why have you made us come up out of Egypt to bring us to this evil place? It is not a place of grain or figs or vines or pomegranates, nor is there any water to drink. Moses and Aaron went from the presence of the assembly of the door of the tabernacle of meeting, and they fell on their faces, and the glory of the Lord appeared unto them. Then the Lord spake to Moses, saying, take the rod. You and your brother Aaron, gather the congregation together. Speak to the rock. Speak to the rock. Previously, he had told him, smite the rock. But this time he said, don't smite the rock. Speak. Somebody say, speak to the rock before their eyes, and it will yield its water. Thus you shall bring water out of them, out of the rock, and give drink to the congregation and their animals. So Moses took the rod before them as the Lord commanded. You're going to read where Moses didn't obey God. He didn't speak. He smote the rock again. And because Moses smote the rock again, Moses was forbidden to go to the promised land. Y'all don't want to hear what I'm saying. Look at your neighbor and say, neighbor, be aware of extreme anger. I want to preach extreme anger. You may be seated in the presence of the Lord. Extreme anger. One of the most common and destructive daily habits that people get caught up in certainly must be the habit of worrying. And if it's a habit of worrying, somewhere in there it's got to be the habit of worrying and having anger. Allowing your spirit to be troubled and agitated. Being or getting mad or angry. I don't care what anybody say. Everybody in here have been angry at one time or another. Never do anything when you're in the temper or in the anger, when you're tired. Never do anything. Don't make no decisions when you're in an altered state, for you're going to do everything wrong. Speak when you're angry, and you'll make the best speech you'll ever regret. Whatever is begun in anger ends in shame. Anger is one letter short of danger. You spell anger, spell it somebody. A-N. Y'all got y'all's hooked on phonics. A-N-G-E-R. But if you put a D in front of it, D-A-N-G-E-R spells danger. Anger is like a cymbal crash in the middle of a beautiful lullaby. It's like a crying baby in the middle of an anointed church service. It should be stopped and dealt with and carried out immediately. Anger, regular anger, if you don't control it, if you don't deal with it at the moment, it will lead you into extreme anger. It's when you're a little late and a little gone and a little tired of just hanging on that you get angry. Anger should be managed in its initial stages. Whenever you get angry, you need to deal with it right there. Because I was told when I grew up that harsh words spoken to a child will create an adult with low self-esteem. Harsh words spoken to a child will create an adult. A little boy growing up with grown man problems. Or a little girl walking around here right now dealing with grown woman troubles. People always care when it's too late. When it's too late. People don't wait one day. Most of us wait one day too late. You know, that's the fallacy. Isn't that the discrepancy? That's the problem with waiting, is that most of us wait one day too late. I'm going to say this in my own sentiment. Don't wait one day too late, because Jesus will come and you'll be left behind. Yesterday you couldn't even find Jesus on your mind. How sad the fate that you found the time one day too late. You have to deal with things as they arise, because problems are best addressed before they arise. Especially the unresolved issues of your past. You got to funeralize and eulogize and bury the past, or you will never be who or what God has called or ordained you to be, until you stand over the corpse of the past and pronounce it dead. You cannot be used by God with unresolved issues. Some of us in here right now are dealing with anger issues. Some of y'all are dealing with worry. Who am I preaching to already? How many of you understand that unresolved issues and anger and worry engenders domination? And domination leads to frustration. Frustration leads to aggression. And aggression leads you to scapegoating. Scapegoating is the practice of singling out a person or a group for unmerited, unsolicited blame and consequent negative treatment. Sometimes people get mad at you for no reason at all. You ain't done nothing. Nobody wants to blame themselves for what they're going through. It's always somebody else's fault. It's when a person or a group is made to bear the blame who become the target or the objects of persecution, hatred, and hostility for others to suffer in your place. In your place. Chiefly and biblically, when you talk about a scapegoat, it's an innocent goat let loose in the wilderness and left unattended to wander and ultimately to die. The high priest symbolically during Yom Kippur, he would lay his hands on a goat and he would pronounce the sins of the people on that goat, and then they would take that goat and release him into the wilderness to wander and to die for the sins of the people. It's been one of the biggest issues of most of our lives. Some of y'all are just angry folk. Some of y'all getting mad at the drop of a hat. And I know that many people in here right now, you might not be saying amen, but you struggle with worry, you struggle with anger, and you struggle with frustration. The greatest mistake that you can make in life is to continually fear that you're going to make one. Because if you think you're going to make a mistake, 9 times out of 10, you're going to make a mistake. People become attracted. You know, I found this, that people become attracted to their burdens. Sometimes more than burdens are attracted to them. Some of y'all sitting in here right now allowing your imaginary difficulties to keep you down. Because real difficulties can be overcome. It's only the imaginary ones that are unconquerable. Somebody sitting in there right now worried about something that's going to happen that ain't going to happen. It's the trash and the garbage and the rubbish, the trash in your head that is unconquerable to you. And it comes to pass. What comes to pass, Bishop? Whatever you think. As a man thinketh in his heart, so is he. And as he continues to think, so shall he also be. No thought lives in your mind rent-free. I'm going to say it again. No thought lives in your mind rent-free. There's no thought in your mind without consequences and repercussions. I'm going to ask you, what are you paying for the thoughts that you're thinking right now? How expensive are your thoughts that you're thinking right now? I think some of y'all's thoughts is costing you more than what you think. You're not getting a return on your investment on what you think because you're not thinking the thoughts of God. You got to change your stinking thinking. You got to say garbage in, garbage out. You got to realize that the biggest problem that you ever face today are the imaginary ones. Most of you losing your teeth and your hair falling out today over something that ain't going to even transpire in your life. We don't lose our sleep over real ones. You lose your attachment to burdens and and they'll lose their attachment to you. You're attached to your burdens. And because you're attached to your burdens and your troubles and your trials, and I'll tell you something, that's your choice. You decide whether a test becomes a trial. You are not what happened to you. You are what you choose to become. Look at your neighbor and say, I don't look like what I've been through. No, y'all don't know. I don't look like what I've been through. All frustrations are self-induced, self-inflicted, and they are products of your poor judgment and your bad choices. The outside world can invite you to become upset. Satan can give you an invitation to participate in sins and acts of offense against the knowledge of God. But ultimately, you got to accept or reject that invitation. Somebody say the choice is yours. See, when you're not focused on the outcome, just the obstacle, on the option and not the priority, you're going to end up angry. Somebody sitting in this church right now is mad at somebody else. Sitting in church right now with rocks in your jaws, going to hell sucking on a jalapeno pepper. We mad. I've been to mad churches. Somebody got mad in the church and decided they're going to go start them one, and now they got a mad choir. Got a mad praise team. Mad organ player just beating on the keyboard. Everybody mad. The preacher preaching a mad message to a mad people. Just mad. We compound our worries, y'all. And we amplify and magnify. We supersize our worries. Sometimes it's just a small thing. We make a mountain out of a molehill. Sometimes we supersize. Anybody in here ever supersize your worry? Stuff we could easily manage if we would only take each day, take the burden appropriated and appointed on that day, just for that day. Paul says, sufficient unto the day is the evil thereof. It's an amorphism which appears in Matthew chapter 6. It implies that we should not worry about tomorrow or the future. Some of you in here right now worried that your roast in the oven gonna burn up, only to realize at the end of this service that you forgot to turn the oven on in the first place. Each day contains an ample burden of evils and suffering in itself. Why are you worried about what's going to happen this evening when you need to be worried about what's happening at this moment? The load would be too heavy for us if we carry yesterday's burdens over again in today. And then we add the burden of tomorrow before we are required to bear it. Worrying is carrying tomorrow's load with today's strength. Some of y'all trying to carry tomorrow's load, and all you got is today's strength. It's like dealing with a chapter 15 challenge with a chapter 5 knowledge. Carrying 2 days at once. Who can have joy carrying 2 days at once? It's moving into tomorrow ahead of time. The Bible said, be anxious for nothing. Okay, I don't want to hear this preacher preach. Worrying doesn't empty tomorrow of its sorrow. It empties today of its strength. And the reason why you're so weak is you carrying too much of a load. You dealing with stuff that you shouldn't even be dealing with in the first place. It's like adding in math. We carry the one. Y'all remember that? Some of y'all carry the one. You carry the one burden over and add it to the next. And you wonder why you don't have no joy in this church today. See, when you have God on your side, somehow our devils are never quite what we expect when we meet him face to face. Man, as long as I got God, I worry about stuff, and I will say this, I have been a worrier. Only to wake up the next day and realize that the thing I was worried about, Big John, well, it wasn't even going to transpire in the first place. See, when I look back over all these worries, I remember the story of an old man who said on his deathbed that he had a lot of trouble in his life, most of which never happened. A lot of trouble that never happen. Have you ever felt like something wrong's about to happen? You ever had a day when you woke up and you just feel bad and you say, oh my God, something is about to happen, even though everything is fine? And you have no actual real reason to worry at all? Can I tell you that our bodies were not designed to harbor worry? Most of our sicknesses and diseases can be attributed to stress, anger, and worry. You got to learn to just trust God. But then you got to learn to trust yourself. You got to encourage yourself. You got to keep some of the encouragement and joy for yourself. You got to have faith in yourself. What's the principle? Bless God, bless yourself, and then bless others. Problem with a lot of us, we give all of our courage to somebody else, and then when we get in a trial, we ain't got no courage left for ourselves. You don't have any courage left for yourself. You discouraged because you gave all your courage to somebody else before you came to church. Can I tell you, you need to keep some courage for yourself. You survived a lot, and you're going to survive whatever's coming. I don't care what you tell me. God has tested your low limit. He said, I'll never put no more on you than that which you're able to bear. With every temptation, I'll make a way of escape that you might be able to bear it. The fact that you're going through what you're going through today tells me that you're going to survive. You're not going to become a tragedy nor a statistic of your test. Touch yourself and say, I'm going to survive. Don't let your mind bully or pimp your body into believing that it must carry the burden of all these worries. Because I promise you, nothing is as chaotic as it seems. Nothing is worth your health. Nothing is worth poisoning yourself in distress, anxiety, and fear. You don't have to control your thoughts. You just got to stop letting your thoughts control you. I've spent all night worrying and walking the floor. I'm still talking about me. I spent all night in my past wringing my hands, walking the floor saying, Lord have mercy, Lord have mercy. Only to wake up the next day to find that it was pointless to worry about problems I didn't yet have. Sometimes I'm worried about stuff. Oh, come on, I worry about people. Problems that I don't even have. Sometimes we got big dreams and high hopes and great expectations. Expectation is the mother of all frustration. I tell people all the time, set your goals high enough to inspire you, but low enough to encourage you and not to discourage you. Because if you put your goals so high, that so lofty that you can't obtain it, sometimes you get discouraged because you didn't obtain the goal that you set for yourself. You got to have faith, but you got to have more than faith. You got to have faith and a plan. Because a goal without a plan is just a wish. And some of y'all sitting in here right now living for God on a wish. Wish you had the victory. Come on, y'all ain't saying nothing to me today. Expectation creates frustration, aggravation, and exasperation. Your expectations can become premeditated resentments and disappointments. Frustration is the shadow of expectation. It's easy to pass the buck, to blame and point fingers at somebody else for something that you did to yourself. To find what you're doing, it's easy to find what other people are doing wrong in their life. It's easy to have eyes without, but it's difficult to find the wrong in your own life and have eyes within. See, you don't change by finding the fault in other people's lives. You change by finding the fault in your own life. Sometimes you can't see yourself clearly until you see yourself through the eyes of others. Sometimes you got to look at your, y'all ain't saying a word today. It is so difficult for me to come to the realization that I am an accomplice. I am an abettor in my own frustration. It's hard for you to recognize that you're frustrated because you made your own bed. You're not frustrated over something I did. You're frustrated over something choices that you made for yourself. See, God told Moses to speak to the rock. God said, speak to the rock because I've already paid the price. And the price is right. Speak to the rock, Moses, because y'all need to know that the blood still works. It works. It will never, 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 ever, ever, ever lose its power. But Moses had over time, like some of us. Didn't happen overnight. Over time, Moses had accumulatively, he had gotten so disappointed and so mad and so angry and so frustrated into extreme anger. He had progressed into danger. And he had gotten aggressive. How many know a lot of us need to know when you get into extreme anger leads to aggression. He got so aggressive that he couldn't even follow or execute. He couldn't even accept a simple solution, a lesser basic command or request. All he had to do was speak to the rock. Simple request. Moses was so frustrated because they were doing the same thing that got them in trouble with God the first time. He saw them doing the same. How many of y'all sitting in here right now doing the same thing that got you in trouble with God the first time? You never make the same mistake twice. The second time you make it, it's no longer a mistake, it's a choice. No, Pastor, I made a no, baby, you didn't make a mistake. You made a choice. See, God used 3 captivities, 3 bondages, Egyptian, Babylonian, and after he delivered them out of Babylonian captivity, after 70 years, he had to take them back under the tutelage and the bondage of Rome. After 70 years, he took them under Roman bondage and Roman slavery and Roman servitude. Why? Because the spirit that had taken them into bondage in the first place was still prevalent among them. Some of y'all going through the same thing. The reason why you're going through it because you're hard-headed and you won't listen. Your situation will keep repeating itself until you learn your lesson. No matter who tries to teach you your lessons about life, you won't understand it until you have to go through it on your own. Mama can't tell you nothing. Daddy can't tell you. You got to go through. How many of you didn't learn your lesson until you had to go through it for yourself? You ought not have to go to jail to know jail ain't a good place to be. Y'all ain't saying nothing. Somebody say, I wanted jailhouse body, so I went to jail so I could lift weights and get my jailhouse body, get my swell. You don't have to go to jail to get a jailhouse body. They were complaining and accusing and murmuring against God again. And the scripture said, oh Zion, what's the matter now? They were like David's men taking up stones to kill Moses. Moses had heard all the rumors and the talk. Moses had heard it through the grapevine. We know when folks are not satisfied with our leadership because folks talk out of their spirit. Bishop don't know what he's talking about. He done brought us out here in the middle of this wilderness to die. Please stop being the conduit or the carrier, a bellhop or gossip or a talebearer, spreading bad news from one person to another. The only reason why folk tell you what they tell you is they know you're going to go tell it to the person that they want to hear it. After all Moses had endured, after all Moses had put up with, out of all the hell and the things that Moses had done for them, they were intending and threatening to kill and to take Moses' life. Moses allowed himself through repetition to get frustrated with the people. Be honest with me. Sometimes you get frustrated with folk. Anybody got a hard-headed child? God almighty, you keep telling them over and over, and you go in the room and you say, that boy's so hard-headed. He make me sick. When you're frustrated with the people you love, that you feel owe you, that you sacrifice for, it's difficult. It's hard when you're frustrated with people you done invested in and sacrificed for, and they don't show no type of appreciation for you at all. Why is it that we'll sacrifice for our children and work our fingers to the bone, but they won't do nothing in return for us? There is the law of reciprocity. That if you've helped and blessed others, then you ought to have the right to expect some loyalty, something in return. When you get in trouble, you ought to expect somebody to help and to bless you. Who am I preaching to today? See, the conflict, the contradiction against yourself is overwhelming when you get frustrated. Oh my God. It's unbelievable and unbearable. Why? I'm frustrated. I'm angry. I'm mad. I'm agitated. I'm aggravated by what you're doing. The Bible says, for consider him that endured such contradiction. It's hard when you're in a place of contradiction, when everything is going opposite and contrary to what God told you he was going to do in your life. You get angry. Jesus, consider him who endured in such contradiction, or hostility, or opposition of sinners against himself, lest you be weary and faint in your mind. Look at somebody and say, you got to get your thinking together. It's one thing to be frustrated with strangers. People with whom you have no dog, no investment, ain't got no dog in the fight. You ain't never done nothing for them. You ain't never just met them. It's easy. It's not easy to be frustrated with strangers. People you don't know. But when you get frustrated with people that you grew up with, that you see every day, you get frustrated. I've been worshiping and preaching here 30-something years. It's easy for me to get frustrated with you. And guess what? It's easy for y'all to get frustrated with me. Oh, come on, don't act like you ain't never been frustrated with Bishop. Some of y'all decide I ain't going to church this morning. Why? Because I'm frustrated with Bishop. The Bible says that a man's foes, his fight, his opposition shall be those in his own house. It proliferates the trial when it's folks you see every day. It proliferates the trial, the test, the hurt, the pain, and the disappointed when it's somebody do you know. David said, had it been my enemy, I could have borne it. But it was you, my brother and my sister, who I walked in the house of God with every day. It's hard when it's somebody that you done some stuff for, and you done worked your finger to the bone, and you done sacrificed for. The people was frustrated with the leader, and now the leader is frustrated with the people. The people are blaming you, and you blaming the people. You need to know that life is an echo, and whatever you send out, it's going to come back to you. The people was frustrated because they felt that Moses had led them into trouble, a curse, hard times, into a trap, ambush, Red Sea in front, mountains on both sides, and Pharaoh's army behind. Moses, you done brought us out, Pastor, you done brought us out here to die? Wish we could have died back there with the rest of our family in Egypt. At least we could have died with them. See, the people will follow you as long as there ain't no trouble. Oh, come on, this church packed, but it ain't no trouble. Come on, somebody. People follow me as long as there ain't no challenges. They'll follow you and believe in you as long as there's no controversies. Because folks don't mind a little trouble as long as it's in somebody else's life. These fair weather Christians, some of y'all ain't nothing. We're living in the Toys R Us generation. Like Ronnie Millsap and Stevie Wonder and Ray Charles. Y'all can't see or understand nothing. There's a kiss, an admiration, an attraction, a flattery that's deceptive. Everybody that pats you on the back and puts $1 in your pocket ain't your friend. The Bible said, be careful to take heed when men say good things about you. You know what scares me? If when folks a joker starts bragging on me, calling me daddy, calling her mama. Oh, I get scared when that happens because I know that a lot of times that's a deception. You're a good daddy, you're a good husband, you're a good wife, you're a good pastor. Till you get evicted. I'm a good husband until my family get evicted. Till trouble comes into the Garden of Eden. They were okay as long as the manna was falling, as long as they were getting manna every morning, they was okay. Now, I'm not telling you that Moses was right. I'm telling you Moses did wrong. Moses should have spoke to the rock. but because he had unresolved issues. Here's the thing about frustration. You can't keep walking around this church with unresolved issues. I'm telling you, better. You're going to find yourself in extreme anger with the people. Did you not know you can be so angry with the people that you should be feeding? I'm not going to get nobody saying nothing. He now speaks to the people instead of speaking to the rock. He smites the people instead of speaking to the rock. You can get so frustrated, man, that you can't encourage nobody. Moses got so discouraged that he speaks to the people instead of speaking to the rock. God didn't tell him to speak to the people. He told him to speak to the rock. And if you speak to the rock, the water's going to come out. Problem, you wondering why the water ain't coming out. The water's not coming out because you're speaking to the wrong thing. We are speaking to the people instead of speaking to the rock. Pastors and wives and husbands, you carrying and speaking your burden, your confusion, your questions, your hurt, your frustration to your family, to your children, to your husband, your wife, instead of the rock. You're supposed to be talking to God. You're not supposed to be talking to them. And so, because you're frustrated, I ain't going to ask you to raise your hand because we're going to lie. Everybody in here know you've been frustrated, but you're going to have your hand act like you ain't. Instead of feeding the people you love, giving the water to the people, quenching the people's thirst, you speak to the rock and smite the people. Have you ever been mad at somebody in the church? Can I warn you that if you carry the old bricks from your past relationship to build a new one, you'll end up building the same house that fell apart before. Some of y'all mad, and you know you're mad, you're frustrated, you're angry, you're exasperated, you're headed to extreme anger, and you're trying to build a house, but the house that you're building with them angry bricks gonna be the same house you just destroyed, and you're gonna have a house that's gonna collapse on you. You gotta understand the bull and the matador. I remember being in Tijuana. I see the matadors, they stand in the marketplace because they're going to have a bullfight. I wanted to go to the bullfight, John. So I told my friend, a shopkeeper, I said, my friend, I'm going to the bullfight. He says, no, my friend, do not go to the bullfight. You will not like it. He says, you will not like what they're going to do to the bull. It's bloody. It's barbaric. It's horrible what they're going to do. He said, blood is going to be everywhere, and you don't want to see that. And then I recognize in my mind, sometimes I get mad at folks that ain't got nothing to do with what I'm going through. See, that bull will chase that red cape, the waving of that red cape. And until one time he back up and he'll recognize who's sticking him. See, a lot of times we put it on somebody else, but you got to recognize who's sticking you. Don't be fighting me. Go after who's sticking. I hear people all the time talk about the church is this and the church is that. The church did this. And I said, baby, call the name of the folks who did what you said. It ain't I ain't getting no help. I'm going to lose y'all after a while. See, you don't have a right to say some of the stuff that you carry, but your mouth gets you in trouble with God. Man, when you get angry, an angry woman, an angry man, sometimes you go nose to nose in the house. Oh, don't act like you've never done it. Carry it to God, not to them, not to him, not to her. He didn't say call your best friend. You have a right to speak to God and call your husband or your wife. I can call Sister Riles anything and everything when I'm talking to God, but not to the people, not to you. She can go to God and say, he's a sorry, lazy, no good man, God. And she has a right to say that to God. But she has no right to call the ladies in the church and say, my husband is a sorry, no good for nothing man. Vent it to God, not your kids. Vent it to God, not your friends. I know you're mad. I know you're frustrated. I know you're angry. Don't ask Sister Voodoo to tell you who do or what to do. Speak to God and let the Spirit itself make groanings and utterings and screaming and yelling and hollering. Not the people. Not her, not them, not us. Just tell Jesus. And when you tell him all. God said, you have not spoken to me. You posted, you put it on Facebook. Oh, who am I talking about? Half of the stuff that going in your life wouldn't nobody know if you just stop posting it on Facebook. I think the devil's tool is Twitter. God almighty. I'm tired of reading about the saints' problems on a blog. Periscope. Come on, somebody. Jesus, God said, you haven't consulted me. You talk to everybody, your Facebook friends. Get in trouble and you're going to find out that your Facebook friends are cheapened friends. That's why God has to remove and delete people from your life. There's some people right now, God is moving them out of your life. You listen to them more than you listen to God. God said, I'm going to take them out of your life. Now who you going to talk to? You got to talk to me. Here's the problem with us. We get mad and angry and frustrated and agitated. And we don't tell God. We don't tell the rock. We don't speak to the rock. We speak to the people. You were supposed to speak to the rock and then give them the water that came out of the rock. But you have slayed the night and rescued the dragon. You let the dragon live and you done killed the night. You done smote the people that you're supposed to speak to. You got too much mouth in the relationship. Have you ever had a relationship that the person you was connected to had too much mouth? Reason why some of y'all marriages, I'm not looking at some of y'all, turn my back. The reason why some of y'all marriages failing because you got too much mouth in the house. You got too much mouth in your marriage. You all talk and no action. Some of y'all don't do nothing but speak community language. And the frustrations of the leader leads to the frustration of the people. Because spirits transfer. If I'm angry, right? Y'all don't want to hear this. If I'm angry right now and I preach an angry message with an angry spirit, y'all gonna go home angry. You're gonna be walking to the parking lot. Shut up, you shut up. You get out of them. You're gonna have to get you. We'll get you a ride. Shut up, make me shut up. Get out of my face. You get out of my face. You act like a man, I'll treat you like a man. Some of y'all fussing right now. You're getting ready to fuss. You're getting angry right now. Rolling your eyes at one another. Because the preacher that's preaching is angry. Angry singers, angry preachers. Angry preachers make angry people. Spirits transfer. Moses had to funeralize. He had outlived and buried all his friends that he grew up with. One after another, the Bible said, who had died in the wilderness, till all of those 25 and over, they was all dead. And there only remained with him Joshua and Caleb from the original generation that had left Egypt. He buried all of them. He buried Mama Neum. And now he's leading their children. God almighty. Their fathers had been on sour grapes, stiff-necked, stubborn, and rebellious. And the Bible said that the children had set their teeth on edge. And as bad as the fathers had been, the kids were 2 times worse than their fathers. They had inherited the attributes of the parents. And Moses is dealing with a fresh generation of hatred and rebellion. Generation Y. Not generation next, generation X. They question everything. It's hard to lead the people that don't want you to lead them. Some of y'all sitting in there right now, y'all question every decision that we make in this church. Those children couldn't understand or accept nothing. They knew the power, the means, the acts of God, but Moses knew the ways of God. And to compound the problem, Moses was not a spry chicken. You know, things change. When you get older, boy, I used to could tolerate all that fussing. Get off me, touch me, don't put your hand on me. He's touching me, Pastor, she's touching me. Pastor, and she told me to shut up. Now, Pastor, she's on my side of the bed. Don't cross that line, don't cross that line. Don't put, Pastor, she got her foot on the cross of the line. Pastor, I used to could deal with that when I was younger. But when you're not a sprout chicken no more. Moses had reached chronological maturity. Moses was now well advanced in age and in years. He was a senior citizen. He was a card-carrying member of AARP. Moses done got too old. Some of y'all know what I'm talking about. You know, that when your children get grown, I'm just trying to preach. It's easy to have children in the house when they're little bitty and they, you know, you they Holy Ghost, you they Holy Ghost, you they regulator, you they governor. But when children get tall enough to look you in your eyes and they start making their own decisions and have their own opinions for themselves, it's hard to live in a house with grown children. I'm just saying, ain't nobody go. Most people have their most severe test. Moses done got too old. Most people have their most severe test when they're young and strong. But like Abraham had his strongest test in his old age after he had reached chronological maturity. God told old man Abe, after he had given him the son of his promise in his old age, to take Isaac up the mountain and commit an abomination. He said, I want you to kill the son of promise, a type, a shadow of Jesus Christ. And when he raised the knife, listen, God does not want you to kill your children. He didn't want Moses to sacrifice his child. What God wanted to know was if Moses loved his child, the child of promise, more than he loved him. He wanted him to know, if you had to sacrifice your child for me, would you sacrifice your child for me? Do you want him or do you want me? And when he raised the knife, God stayed his hand. He saw the ram caught by his horns in the thickets or in the bush. The lamb with his head caught in a crown of thorns. The substitute lamb, Christ on Calvary. Listen, people change, y'all. As you get older, you change. Sometimes I tell myself, I don't want to keep doing for Sister Riles what I used to do when we were in our 20s. Because what she needs now, she probably doesn't need the same thing in the 20s that she needs in her 60s. See, a lot of times you can be doing stuff that a person don't even need anymore. Look at somebody and say, you got to update. I'm not going to get nobody helping you. People change. Your level of patience and tolerance dwindles when you've been suffering and going through something a long time. When suffering has priority and seniority. The woman with the issue of blood, sick 18 years. Whew. The man at the pool of Bethesda, 38 years. Man, 38 years is a long time to be sick. I can't be sick one day. How long can y'all be sick? Man, 2 or 3 days. This is for the birds. I'm tired of being sick. I want to go out to eat. Come on, somebody. Things change. Your tolerance level, your threshold changes when you AARP. That's why you ought to have your babies while you're young. You need youth to enjoy and to give children what they need. To come home from work and run and wrestle and frolic with them. You can't do that when you get old. There's a reason why we shouldn't be trying to get a cougar, a 60-year-old woman pregnant. Now y'all know y'all ain't right for that. What's the problem? Moses was in one stage. Y'all got to hear this. And they were in another stage. They wanted this, but Moses wanted that. They were here, but Moses was there. And how many know you at a different stage of your life the older you get? They had buried their mothers and their fathers, watching how Moses had dealt with and pastored and fathered and treated and led them. They heard the testimonies and the opinions of their moms and their daddies and their parents. The children didn't like Moses. And don't sit here and act like everybody like us. Everybody don't like the pastor. Everybody don't like the church. Everybody, you can get to the point where you don't like a leader because their parents have programmed them not to like the leader of the church. Your children don't like the church because you programmed them not to like the church. Your children don't like sister so-and-so because you programmed them not to like sister so-and-so. Your sister don't like brother so-and-so, and the children don't like them because you programmed them not to like sister so-and-so. How they gonna come to church now and follow a man or respect the church that you hated, you despised, and you talked about, and you put down all your life? Like father, like son, like mother, like daughter, you converted them, but after they were made, they were twofold children of hell. Your children don't come to church because you talked about the church, and you talked about your problems, and you talked about what you didn't agree with, and you disagreed with this and you disagreed with that. Now the possibility is that you might go to heaven, but your children go to hell. I know y'all don't like this kind of preachers. God speaks to Moses and says, Moses, the children are now doing the same thing that their parents did. They're repeating the same sins. The same spirit that led them cycling and circling and spiraling in the wilderness is still prevalent among them. You got the same old low-down spirit your daddy had. You got the same fussing, nagging, arguing spirit your mama had. If you get ready to marry a man or a girl, go home, meet their mom and daddy. If the mama is a nagger, then the daughter perhaps is going to be a nagger too. Because whatever the parents are tend to rub off on the children. Just like their parents before them. They said, Moses, we thirst. Have you brought us here into this dry, barren land for us to die of thirst? They first generation said the same thing. They were saying the same thing. We need water. So God says to Moses, I'm going to do it again. I'm going to do what I did before for the father. Moses, I'm just going to do exactly what I did. You've been through it once before. I'm going to do exactly what I did for their fathers. For their fathers had commanded you to smite the rock and get water from an impossible source, to prove that I am God. And I led them out and provide for them by the necessity of miracle, and not only by the industry of hand. I'm going to let you smite a rock, the most unlikely place to receive water to quench thirst. I'm going to let you smite a rock, and then you're going to take the water that comes out of that dry rock, and you're going to give it and feed it to the people. Moses, instead of smiting the rock, this time he said, I want you to audibilize. How many know you grow in God? And as you grow in God, some of the things that you used to have to smite and fight, now all you got to do is speak. You ever notice in the Bible, Jesus never wrestled a demon? Boy, in our church, it's like the WWE, ain't it? God forbid a demonic person would come up in this church right now. Man, I'd have John and Kayla and Greg and Brother Kip and Ray and Sister Riles, Sister Cassie, Brother Deal on this cane. We'd all be wrestling. Now, you take your turn. When I get tired, you wrestle yours. And then, we tag team. Moses, instead of speaking to the rock, this time I want you just to audibilize. I want you to articulate. I want you to speak to the rock instead. But Moses through frustration, disobeyed God. And his disobedience led to the forfeiture of Moses entering into the promised land and into Canaan. He forfeited his opportunity to go into the promised land because he got frustrated. Oh, saints of God, don't get so frustrated in your relationship that you ruin your marriage. Don't get so frustrated at church that you got to find me another church. What Moses didn't realize is that his life, his act, was being used to symbolize as a token, a pattern, a foreshadowing of the life of Jesus Christ, of the example of what God would do with Jesus. The rock was a type of Jesus Christ. The first time he smote the rock, it typified Jesus being crucified. And God wanted the pattern, the smiting, to exemplify Christ having only to be smitten and sacrificed and suffer once and for all. That he would not have to die but once. And not have to repeat or keep going through it again and again and again. So when Moses gets frustrated and smites the rock again, he shatters and he alters, he changes the typology. He alters and detours and destroys the metaphor. And God responds because he examples or suggests. Moses puts forth an institute to testify something about the rock. He says something about the rock, something about God that was not correct and proper. It wasn't true. And it was that he was saying that the rock had to be smitten twice to bring deliverance or to quench our thirst. In order to do what God needed to do through Jesus, that it would have to be done twice. Twice, but nice. And not just one touch would bring salvation and healing and deliverance, but it was going to take 2 touches. Frustration is a sign of investment. Because anytime you invest something, some time in something, and it don't work out like you think it's going to work out, you get frustrated. In a relationship, folk get frustrated when it don't work out. What do you mean you leaving me? I just got you a steak dinner. You ate salad. You ate dessert. You didn't drink a milkshake. And now you going to tell me after I made this investment, you don't like me? The question becomes now is, do you have a man? And she says, yes. Then I say to her, well, you better call him. You need to call him right now. You're finna need him. Call him, baby. Because some table and some chair moving is finna take place up in this place. Don't fire me at the end of the day. If you're going to fire me early in the morning. Don't let me work all day long and then fire me at the end of the day. If you fire me you don't fire us at the end of the day. Fire me in the morning. You fire a person at the end of the day, they'll look at you and say, I'm fired. I'll be right back. Grief is a sign of love. Oh, I got to quit. There's no grief without love, and there's no frustration without investment. Because when you invest in people or sacrifice with people, you have a right to expect some loyalty in return. Now, if I ain't never done nothing for you, you ain't obligated to do nothing for me. But if I cut for you, then when I get in trouble, I expect you. You know what's wrong with our generation? You know what is wrong with this generation? We could never have been in the generation of Joshua. Can you imagine Joshua going to the children, to the people of God, and telling them we're going to march around Jericho until the walls fall down? And then some of y'all jokers that love everybody say to Joshua, I ain't marching because I ain't got nothing against them. I ain't got nothing against the Jericho. I ain't got nothing against them folks. They ain't never done nothing for me. I've been to Jericho. They're good people. I befriended them. I ain't got nothing against them, so I ain't marching. Today you got folks that won't even march because they don't have the guts to deduce and make a decision. Some of y'all can't make no choice. I don't want to hurt nobody's feeling, Bishop. I ain't going to get against nobody, so I'm not going to say nothing. I ain't marching. Can I just stand over here in the shade? I ain't marching and tearing their wall down. They ain't never done nothing to us. Why we going to tear their wall down? Come on, somebody. You don't get frustrated with things you haven't invested in. The stock market can crash and you don't care because you have no money invested in it. Sarah could tell Abraham to put Hagar, the bondwoman, out because she had no investment, no dog in the fight. She said, put that old folks say, put that hussy out. That's what my mama and them said. I got to quit. Wherever there is investment, there's frustration. Because investments demand and creates frustration. Anytime you invest, you have expectation. Anytime you have expectation, you're going to have frustration. You can't be disappointed if you have never invested anything. You can't have without risk. You can't keep without struggle. And you cannot succeed without sacrifice. When you invest in something, you have an expectation. See, I don't have an expectation of sinners to do anything or to live holy or live according to the word. I don't have no expectation. But when you tell me you love God, you're born again, you're a Christian, then I have an expectation that you're going to live according to the word. And with that expectation, you have the potential. With that expectation, you have the potential, the possibility of frustration, exasperation, and aggravation. How many of you in here, now I'm going to close, have ever been frustrated? Anybody in here right now exasperated, aggravated on your job, in your marriage? You sitting there right now saying in your mind, if I'd have known that he was this way or she was like that, I never would have married in the first place. But you didn't know. Because when we pronounce you husband and wife, we calling you husband and wife on credit. And then you got to walk away from this altar and struggle to become what we just called you. You can't be disappointed if you have made an investment in anything. And when expectation is realized, you're going to have some disappointment. And if disappointment is not resolved, you'll leave a person disappointed. If you leave a person disappointed long enough, things unresolved, unsettled issues lead to frustration. And that's why you don't have no joy in your home. Because you got unresolved issues. And because you're living with unresolved issues, unsettled issues, somebody is frustrated. See, people cry not because they're weak, but because they've been strong too long. Sometimes a person get tired of dealing with your weaknesses. They get tired of dealing with your mess. And it's not because they're weak. They don't quit because they're weak. They quit because they've been strong too long. They just don't understand why they got to keep on putting up with you. Frustration is when disappointment goes inside and internalized and digs in. Frustration is disappointment hiding in your chest and your heart and in your body. Speaking out of your inner being, emotions, your belly, your vocalizing and verbalizing. I thought it would have been better by now. I thought this would have been, I thought we would have had a better relationship by now. I thought we would have built a church by now. Man, I thought I would have had a better job. I thought I would have got a raise by now. I thought I would be over that thing that happened by now. Frustration comes through what you thought, your thinking, your deducing, your deduction, and your analysis. When what you thought does not happen or come to pass, you get frustrated. Moses, the pastor, the man of God, was frustrated. He doesn't take it to God in prayer. He doesn't speak to the rock. He speaks out of frustration to the people that he should have been feeding and leading and nourishing. He vents or takes it out on the people that he loved. And most of the time when you get frustrated, it's going to be the people that you love that you're going to take it out of. Sometimes you venting to your wife. You got to be careful. Your husband, your kids, your friends, your church, because you don't have no prayer life. You don't have a prayer life. The reason why you can't keep your mouth shut is because you don't have a prayer life. And because you're not talking to God, you can't quit talking to everybody else. You got to have a prayer life. You better play, Theo. They're getting quiet and silent. They ready to go to the Golden Corral. It may be a sign that you are not speaking to God. When you get so frustrated and you can't keep your mouth shut, you got to speak to everybody about what you should not be speaking to the people about. So Moses gets so frustrated. You know what he does? He let them have it. Moses, God's man. Let me ask y'all a question. Paul wrote to the Corinthian church and told them that he was going through something. He didn't know whether he could come deal with what they was going through because he was going through something himself. What do you do when the apostle or the pastor that you're following is suicidal? Paul said, I'm about to commit suicide myself, so I don't know how I'm going to help y'all. It may be a sign you're not speaking to God. Anytime a person hits or strikes or fights, it's because they're angry and mad. And things are out of control, and violence and arguing and fighting and nagging is a way of regaining control. The only reason why you'll fight a woman, the only reason why you'll fight a man is because you're out of control. Things are out of control, and fighting is a way of trying to regain control. You hit somebody because you're in extreme anger, and extreme anger leads to aggression. Man, you'll fight at church when you get into extreme anger. I've seen folk fighting at the altar. Extreme anger. Y'all don't want to hear what I'm saying. Things are out of his control, and violence, and that's the way you regain. Moses hits or strikes or beats what he should speak to, because that is what we do when we frustrated. Moses is frustrated because he expected so much more from them, and he got so much less. Man, you got in a good marriage, got in a good church, had a good pastor, and you got frustrated because you expected so much more from him, and you got so little and so less. Stand with me, everybody. He's frustrated because everything is changing. Man, I wish I would get this. Ain't nobody getting it, but it's okay. Here's the danger, y'all. The danger is you can get frustrated because everything is changing. You got to be careful. Man, if stuff start changing, people don't like change. Everything is changing. Tradition is changing. Moses, why are you so mad? Because I'm not used to doing things this way. This ain't the way I did it. God, I'm angry and frustrated because you didn't do it this way last time. You told me last time to smite the rock. How you going to tell me this time to speak? Things are changing. God, you changing. I'm getting old. I ain't got time to deal with it. How you going to tell me to do something different just when I got it down? Just when I'm comfortable doing what I'm doing. Lord, I smite the rock and the water comes out. That's how it's always been. That's what we did before. That's what we've always done. That's the way we do it. But what do you do when what you have done before don't work? When you're frustrated with change. Jesus saw the disciples. I'm close. Jesus saw the disciples after he had died. And Peter had already went back to his old ways. Jesus wasn't even dead 3 days, and Peter looked at the rest of the apostles and said, "I'll go fishing." What? Back to your old ways already? But when they went out there, y'all, guess what? They didn't catch nothing. Nothing, because the Bible says they was fishing on the wrong side of the boat. Jesus says, go back out there again. Isn't it funny that Jesus was a carpenter, but he was teaching fishermen how to fish? Y'all put me in my place if I try to tell you how to do your job. Pastor, you a pastor. You ain't never done no accounting. You ain't never done no carpenter work. You do your job, let me do mine. But the apostles were so submitted to Jesus, even though they knew he was a carpenter and they were professional fishermen. When he told them how to fish, they didn't argue. They went back and cast their nets on the right side. Now here's my end. Here's the end. After Jesus died, he was on the shore cooking fish. Peter was so backslidden, he was naked. Ain't nobody listening to me today. Peter strips his clothes off. He's naked on the boat fishing. Wow. I sure wouldn't want to see that. Especially when you got other men on the boat and you buck naked. Something is wrong. Then he sees Jesus on the shore. You know what he does? He jumps in the water. Naked. Because that's what you are before God anyway. Ain't no use you trying to hide it. He sees you naked. Listen, here's the meat. Jesus looks at the disciples. Watch this. They frustrated, y'all. They're angry. They're mad. They're tired. They're agitated, frustrated. They're in extreme anger. Why? Because they said, we toiled all night. God almighty, man, we've been working all night. And we caught nothing? We professional fishermen, man. You mean tell me we caught nothing? And once Jesus comes to put his finger in that sore spot, Jesus looks at them with a smile. He calls them children. He says, children, have you any fish? Man, if I've been working all night trying to catch fish and somebody joke will come up on the side and holler, have you any fish? I mean, listen, man, listen, dog, you better move around. You see we ain't got no fish. What's wrong with you, man? Stop playing. You better stop playing with us. You know we ain't got no fish. We're frustrated. You better move around. Have you any fish? Frustrated. And the question is today, saints, have you any fish? Anybody got any fish? Not because I'm going to a market. He wasn't asked it because he wanted to buy some fish to eat. Have you any fish? The reason why you don't have fish is because you're disobedient, you're frustrated, you're mad, you're angry, and you're out of the will of God. You fished all night and you ain't got one fish. Does anybody in this church have any fish with them today? Look beside you. Have you any fish? Have you any fish? They were so angry, they didn't catch nothing. Who's angry? Ain't gonna get no hand. Who's frustrated? Thank you, sir. Who's disappointed in yourself? Who feels frustrated in your spirit? Close your eyes with me right quick. The great God of mercy, the great God of hospitality wants to bless you today. He wants to deal with your anger. No weapon formed against me shall prosper. It won't work. Say no weapon formed against me shall prosper. It won't work. God will do. Believe it. God will do what He said He would do. He will stand by His word. He will stand by His word. He will. He will. He will come through. God will. God will. God will do what He said He will do. He's not a man that He should lie. His word. He will. He will. He will. Everybody right now that's going through something, say, no weapon. No weapon. No weapon formed against me shall prosper. It won't work. No weapon formed against me shall prosper. I feel it today. It won't work. It won't. Raise one hand in the air and say, God will do. God